Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first learning community. I will be hosting this meeting, so let's get started. I want to ask you guys first, how are you doing in your placements and how was your day? So Candace, you can start.
It's going good. My day was good. The students were a little crazy, but it's going. It's good. Getting used to the lesson planning and stuff that's different than SPED.
I would agree. I'm also transferring from SPED. Candace and I are in the same classroom.
hmm
So we were in resource. Now we have to get used to the general education curriculum.
hmm
What about you, Ayana?
So I'm transitioning from gen ed into CCK right now, cross categorical kindergarten, so self-contained placement for kids with autism and intellectual disabilities. But I started teaching today, so that was fun. Completely threw the kids off because they like weren't expecting it. But it was fun and it went pretty well actually. My mentor teacher gave me a lot of good feedback, so
That's
Oh, that's
good.
good.
Exciting.
So let's start with the first question. What are different types of adaptations?
That's like ways to change things around the classroom for your students.
hmm
I would say this could be like anything that we do to support the child's needs.
hmm
So one thing we can talk about anything like our experiences, the reading, um, from the modules, but something that we're currently doing in our classroom is like for adaptation is we have a quiet corner for students that have behavioral needs. So if they get frustrated easily, we'll give them a break every now and then, and they can go relax there by themselves and have a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
thing that we do in my special ed classroom right now is we have a it's like an old closet that was converted into a quiet corner is what we call it. And the kids can go in there if they're having behavior issues. And then when I was in gen ed, we would actually let students take breaks where they would take like a sand timer and they would go flip it at their desk and they would sit there and like calm down and watch the sand timer run out. And then when it was out, they would go put it back and they'd come back into the lesson.
Oh,
Ooh, I
okay.
love that idea.
I like that too.
Because we have a student who he like he's not an IEP, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
ingrained. He's behavior like so his behavior is so bad that he has to take breaks throughout the day. And like I never thought about that one. But like that's a real good break.
It's really nice once they get the hang of it because we were using it for a student that wasn't on an IEP, but she had like really bad behavior issues. But once they get the hang of it, like you can silently tell them to like go get their sand timer and like they can go get it on their own and then they know to come back once the timer's up and everything. So like you can
Okay.
make it so it's like super simple and it's not taking away like a bunch of time from you teaching like the general class. So
Yeah. I may have to try that one. Um some adaptive adaptions. Some other ones are what else are we doing in the classroom that I can think of at this moment? Oh, we have small groups for because a lot of our students in third grade are behind in reading. So we
mhm.
do a lot of small groups when it comes to basically everything because they need help with certain things. And something the other teachers have started doing, which I have started doing, is reading test questions when it's like math and even like some ELA because
Mhm.
they don't always understand the wording that's used.
Oh,
Um, So that's a couple different ways we started doing that.
And then I would say another adaptation for academic that we're doing is there's some students that like the ones that can't read, um
mhm.
they can't spell either. So when it comes to writing assignments, what I do is I write their assignment out, they dictate it to me and I write it out in highlighter and then they go back and trace the words.
I've done that. I like doing that with my kids.
Yeah. See, the thing is though, we haven't done, have you done that in Gen Ed yet? Because she did it
Yeah,
instead. You've done it
we
in Gen
did.
Ed?
I did it in Gen Ed mainly at the beginning of the school year when they were all like super new because I'm in kindergarten. Um, and so like a lot of them needed that extra support. But then I had some kids that we were actually putting up like we were pushing them up through the different systems to try and get them on IEPs because we could see that there were some delays.
Yeah.
And those students still like I would write out things for them in like highlighter so that they were able to like go back and trace it and that way they were doing the work but we were just making it so like they weren't doing the whole thing by themselves. Like they needed that
Okay.
extra support.
Oh, okay. Now, do you think this would work? So it's just the two of us in there and we have a lot of behaviors. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think it would work if there was just one person in the classroom? Do you think you would still be able to do that in a class with like 20 students or more? Write out what they're
Um,
saying?
I would say it's a lot harder. So when I was in gen ed, my mentor teacher, she like was in the class with me all day, but she would like work on other things and kind of just like leave me to do everything by myself. But
Oh,
what I learned from her was like there were times where I would need to do like the highlighter stuff for a kid and they would like need me to do it but I also have 19 other kids that I'm taking care of and I had a bunch of behaviors as well. So she told me what I could do is I could do like I could get the papers that need highlighter on them ready beforehand. That way when that part of the lesson
oh,
comes up it's already written out and I can just easily give the papers to the kids without having to like okay, here's your paper now let me bend
okay,
down and like go ahead and write whatever the prompt is for the day. Like go ahead and have it like already prepared at the beginning of the day. That way,
okay.
when you go into the lesson, it's already like just there and you just give them the
Yeah,
paper and they go.
that's a good
That's smart.
strategy. We'd have
Yeah,
to plan ahead for stuff like that.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna take us to the next question. The next question is, what can barriers tell teachers about student learning? In your opinion, why do students continue to have these types of barriers? So I can start off by saying students, like in our experience, we have a student with autism and he's in our general education class for third grade.
Hmm.
I would say autism is his disability, and there's different types of barriers that come with that. So, in order for us to be successful with that student, we have to know what the barriers are and try to overcome them or help support him in whatever he needs.
Hmm.
We just had a parent meeting, so breaking down those barriers for us was having a parent meeting so we know how to go about when we discipline him and how we can support him. And one of the things that we learned was for our student that we have, he needs literal explanations. Like he cannot know the why of
Yeah.
things because it's too
Hmm.
confusing for him. So what we need to do now is be really direct with him and explicit.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's good.
Um, can you, oh wait, actually,
So it can be any barrier that you see like in a student. And why do they
mm,
continue to have these barriers? I would say he continues to have it because of the autism. He doesn't understand social cues.
Hmm.
So then that's where we have to tell him, like, you can do this and you can't do that. And
Hmm.
our why
mhm,
explanation can confuse him sometimes as to why we do things. So he just needs to know, this is wrong and this is correct.
Yeah.
okay. One barrier for a student is, well, for actually all of our students is the talking in our class. Um, like it's so bad that it stops other students from learning. Having to just keep reiterating that we need to keep the level down.
Hmm.
But one of our, as I was saying earlier about our student with behavior problems, it's so bad that it does impact his learning. Like, he doesn't have a one-on-one, but
Uh-huh.
basically one of us would have to sit with him to get him to work, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Um, were you gonna say something?
No, I'm just agreeing
Oh,
with you.
okay. And so why do students continue to have these barriers? Um, in my opinion, honestly, I don't even know. Um, they say he doesn't have emotional control, or what is his emotions. I don't even know how to describe it. What,
I think
but it's just
they're like outbursts. Like he does it without thinking and it just
yeah,
comes out.
and it's just like it's every day, and I'm telling you, like every hour, it's an outburst. Like if he doesn't get a piece of candy, he kicks the desk. Like I'm just yeah. And I don't know why he continues to have these outbursts, actually. Maybe they're thinking about getting him evaluated, or maybe it's something at home because we have no idea what home life is like for a lot of students. But that could be
That
a
actually
type.
could be why the barriers continue. So I think that's a good
Mhm.
reason too, home life. Ayana, do you see any barriers like within your students?
Um, I don't know. I feel like right now, like with my kids, I don't know them well enough to like have identified what their barriers are. Um, with my gen ed kids, I did have, like I said, like I relate to what Candace was saying about the student with behaviors, because I had a student that had a lot of behavior issues, and she was like super smart, but it was also like holding her back. Like her behavior was holding her back from making progress in class, and it was like disrupting her learning because she was actually gifted and she wasn't like retaining anything because her behaviors were so severe. And I feel like the main issue with her is like she always said that things were boring. And so I just feel like they weren't challenging enough or like creative enough to like keep her interest in what we were doing. And so she would like have outbursts, or she honestly like would like bite herself sometimes too, because she
Mm.
like knew she wasn't supposed to be doing the bad behaviors, but it was almost like she couldn't regulate it and like needed to get it out somehow, because she was like at the beginning of the school year she was like going after other kids and everything, and then we found out she was gifted, and that kind of like helped us with identifying like what was going on behaviorally. But she actually transferred out of our district, but before she left, like we still were having issues trying to get her to focus and like regulate her behaviors enough for her to actually make like academic growth. It was just
Mm.
very interesting.
Yeah, especially if they're gifted too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's really
that's
hard.
true,
We have
actually.
two gifted children in our class.
Yeah. And I actually never thought of, because sometimes I don't even think about it, because I always think about how most of our students are so low, but I don't think about how we have two students who are high, and they may be bored and they
Yeah.
want to go ahead, but they can't because we're stuck on the students um who are below. So I
Mm-hmm.
never actually
And
that's never
that's another barrier too. Like
yeah,
they can't
actually.
progress because other students are behind. Majority of the class is behind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
way behind.
So
And
uh,
now I'm gonna go into the third question, which is why do we think inclusive education is important for all students?
mm,
So
well, oh, you
you want to start? Okay.
okay. Inclusive education is important because all students deserve a chance to learn. Even if they're some of the hardest students ever, they deserve a chance because they could become the smartest students you'll ever dream of. Um, and then like we were just saying, everyone, even if you're so low that we don't even think, you're like, oh my gosh, how will I ever get this student to where they need to be at the end of the year? They
Yeah.
still deserve any type of learning or education they can get, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that inclusive education benefits everybody. So special students with special needs benefit from being in a real world environment where majority of the people is um I guess regular, like with regular abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then people like typical third grade students would benefit from having um exposure to students with different disabilities, because then it would make them more empathetic and aware that like people are different, but it's okay because we can work together and help each other out.
Yeah,
Mhm. That's good.
I would agree with that. I feel like it just like all students deserve to um they deserve to have an education, whether they, are at grade level, below grade level, like they deserve to be included in the classroom environment and have materials and age appropriate learning presented to them on a daily basis so that they can make those gains and like make those connections and learn things.
Yeah, that's true. Um, and then whenever I hear inclusive, I always think about how we didn't have that before. So I'm like, it's important because we do not want to go back ever.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh, and then yeah, so whenever I hear inclusive, I'm like, let's not repeat history.
Yeah, like when we were in resource, we got to practice writing IEPs, and
Mhm.
so we always wanted to put students in the least restrictive environment.
Hmm.
And that means them with their gen ed peers as much as they can. Although
Mhm.
sometimes they do need to be pulled out so that they can get that special attention and the help
Yeah.
that they need in reading, writing, and math,
Yeah.
which is going to help them be successful when they come back to the gen ed class. So I like that inclusion focuses more on like having the students in gen ed most of the day
Yeah.
and then getting pulled out like 30 minutes a day or so for resource.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into the fourth question. What is one thoughtful question that you still have regarding this week's topics?
Let's see. Rather than- Hmm. Money is inclusive education. I would like to know what a lot of people think about why is inclusive education important for all students. Um, it's just it's interesting hearing different people's point of view about that. Um, because sometimes I'm just like we all had the same answer basically that it's important no matter what. But I want to
Mhm.
know. I've never heard someone else say it's not, but like if they did, why?
Yeah. And
But
on the other side, like about the why, I can see like it being a distraction sometimes because usually there's one adult with
Mhm.
20 something students and a student with high special needs that's causing a lot of distractions. I can see them not wanting uh,
Yeah.
that inclusion time, but it's very necessary. And I think with support from other staff members, like maybe the sped teacher can come,
oh
Mhm.
yeah,
that would be more helpful.
that's true. Um, and it makes me think of private schools. Like, not everyone can go to a private school, so their inclusive education for all students technically isn't for all students because it's only
Mhm.
people that they want there,
That's
which
true.
is interesting, yeah.
Mhm. Mm.
But I do want to work at a private school like at least once, just to see the difference.
I guess one question I would have would be about the barriers, like how do we go about it?
Mhm.
Because, the student has a disability and we're trying our best to work around their needs. So I would want to know more about how different teachers go about dealing with the barriers.
Mhm.
That's true. Like a seasoned teacher, like what do they do?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, um, because I'll be thinking something like our students, they'll tell us you have to do this, this, and this, and I'm just like, the first thing that comes to my mind is not to yell at these students. Like I gotta rein myself in, and they're like I'm like barely on step 1 myself, and they're all the way over here. And I'm just like, okay, okay. Um, but I'm just like, how? But then I need to remember that they've been doing this for like 30 years, 30 plus
Mhm.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And that and then they talk about, sorry, like, oh yeah, they talk about classroom management, which we're still trying to get a hold of. But I fully, I don't know. Okay. I fully believe that one, it's COVID. Like, I don't even want to say it because I'm just like, we always blame COVID, but it is because I don't think the kids, the barriers, you know what? COVID could be a huge barrier for the
Yeah, that's
kinders
true.
and these third graders. Like the kids we're going to be teaching next year, COVID will have impacted them. Maybe not as much depending on the grade level we teach, but COVID was a huge barrier
Mhm.
that I just thought of. Even for us, like we're getting a different teaching experience than the teachers who graduated
Yeah.
before COVID got, which is like this is yeah, which is really interesting about, and that's a barrier for us, student
Mm-hmm.
learning, ASU, like that's a huge
Yeah.
barrier. Okay.
Ayana, do you have a question?
I feel like my question would probably be how to, I guess, help students overcome barriers that you feel like you can't control
That's good.
almost. Because I feel like there are barriers that you're gonna like run into or you're gonna see where you're like, oh, there's like nothing I can really do about that. Or even if it's something that's in the kid's home environment, like you can't, like if a kid's in foster care, like you can't really do anything about that. Like that's what they go home to every day. You can only do your best when they're in the classroom. So like how do you overcome those barriers that like you really can't help them control?
Yeah, I'd want to know what like a professional would see that as, because like
Mhm.
we're very new.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea how I'd go about that.
Like do you
Yeah.
just give your best when they're with you and under your care and like
Yeah,
just hope that it like is enough to get them through to the next day?
because it just makes
Mhm.
me think of like when a kid cusses at school,
Mhm.
like maybe they're allowed to say bad words at home. Like their parents probably say it all
Right.
the time because
Yeah.
they're hearing it, so they're saying it. So I always try to make that separation between home and school. Like at school, we
Mhm.
do this, okay? And
Mhm.
we don't cuss at school.
Exactly.
So
And
maybe it'd be the
another,
same with the barriers, but I'm
Mhm.
not sure because it's
absolutely.
really impacting.
Yeah.
And another barrier, I don't know if we thought about, but what made, Anna, you made me think about this, is the barriers we can't control is the parents. So
Mhm.
we do
Yeah.
one thing at school and then they go home and their parents do another thing. Sometimes it completely blocks out what we did,
Yeah.
which is so hard.
So
Mhm.
since we have 8 minutes left, about 8 minutes, I'm gonna start the next discussion where we talk about our experiences with a student with more intensive needs. So how do we think about a student with intensive needs being included in the general education classroom? And we'll start off with what does that look like? So we'll briefly talk about this for a minute. What do you guys think that looks like? I would
Mhm.
say a student, like a student we have with intense needs,
Mhm.
is a student we have that has autism and he has a one-on-one. And because of the short staff at all the schools, the one-on-one is only there in the mornings,
Mm.
and towards the afternoons he's on his own.
Mhm.
So that's currently what it's looking like in our room. I don't know if in the gen ed class, did you see students with high needs?
Yeah, so I actually had a student at well, I mean, she's not my student anymore, but she has autism and she came into the classroom at the beginning of the school year. So she was in self-contained special education for preschool last year and then got put into gen ed without a one-on-one, no support at all coming from a self-contained program. And she like couldn't regulate anything, was having like a ton of trouble. Anytime things didn't go her way or she was angry or upset, it was like screaming, kicking, even like running out of the classroom, like literally running around the school. And it was just me and my mentor teacher, and it was really, really hard. But what we started doing for her was a lot of like 1 minute warnings before we transitioned from one activity to the next. She started taking a lot of breaks, and we even did like fidgets and, like weighted lap pads at the carpet and whatnot to help her like be comfortable in the classroom and like learn in the most effective way possible and to just keep her in the classroom. She does have a one-on-one now, but also like there was a point in time where her mom was coming into the classroom almost on a daily basis and like acting like a one-on-one for her daughter just to give
Mm.
us like the hands we needed in the classroom to like make sure her daughter was getting the education she needs, and we were able to like educate and take care of the other kids as well. So it's just a very like interesting situation, and there were like a lot of hands that helped out in our classroom just so that this one student could like get the help that she needed to stay in the class. She does have a one-on-one now, which is really helpful because the one-on-one helps her like transition from activity to activity or like decompress and like regulate her emotions when she's feeling angry and everything. So, but the beginning of the school year was it
Wow.
was interesting to say the
Yeah.
least.
So that's good because you answered all the questions. Like we said what it looked like and what type of experiences you had and what opportunities you gave the student to participate. I'm sure that they were included in everything just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
They might need a little more support, but they're always going to be included.
Yeah.
And how do you think other students responded to that student?
It was interesting. So some of them like didn't really mind at all. We would give her like fidgets and everything, and a lot of the kids were like, "Oh, I want a toy to sit on the carpet." But we explained that like it's not a toy. Some people need different things in order to learn. And then when her mom started coming in, there was a lot of questions about it. Like a lot of the kids were like, "Why does so and so's mom get to come in every day? Like I want my mom to come in." And we would just explain like she needs a little bit of extra help. Like her mom's just coming in to help her in the classroom and like to make sure she's safe and everything. And the kids, they kind of just accepted it and we're like, okay, like that makes sense. But we also do a lot of SEL with them. So they like are kind of more aware of like those emotional aspects and things in the classroom. So
Oh, good. So I
yeah.
think I think they responded like how any kid would. Like they would
Yeah.
be curious, and then once they get all the information, they can connect the dots and be like, "Oh, okay, you're right. Like, yeah, I can see now she
Mhm.
does need support."
Yeah.
Um, so that's good. Now the last thing we have to do is find a resource that supports our opinion on this topic. So for inclusion, and we can just do like an internet search of an article
Okay.
for inclusion. Um,
Okay, let's see. Inclusion.
Do we have to turn that link in when we turn in the link for the video?
no, I think on here we can just talk about it. It just said to find it, but I'll include it just in case.
Oh, you learned how to share the screen.
You guys can see it? Okay.
Yes. Wait. There it goes. Go down.
Oh,
There it goes. Or go up. Sorry. There, inclusion in the workplace.
or in the classroom?
Yeah, in the classroom.
Oh, inclusive classroom climate
Hmm.
from Yale University. So, an environment where all students feel supported intellectually and academically and are extended sense of belonging in the classroom, regardless of identity, learning preferences, or education. Oh, this is good because then it gives
Oh
examples.
yeah.
On the first day of class, first few minutes, each instructor gets to know the students, ask what they're thinking, and invites to contribute their hopes and learning goals for the course.
Hmm.
We have to be respectful and equitable. I like that. Equity is like like being fair.
Yeah.
Y'all, I'm gonna be right back. My
Non-competitive
cousin is
ways.
here.
Okay, we're pretty much done because this one goes with what we've been talking about because I would
Mhm.
say we're all for inclusion.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
I agree.
And then
Oh, the self-assessment. That's good.
yeah, that is a good one. Thinking about how you go about things, like how you taught. Do you reflect sometimes?
Yeah. I used to like take notes about like what went well, what didn't go well.
Good. Yeah, like if something's not going well, I'm like, oh, like what happened? Sometimes I realize I wasn't prepared. Like if I teach a lesson and I'm not prepared to teach it like very well,
Yeah.
the students pick up on that energy and
Mhm.
they start talking.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I used to
Um,
self-assess with
oh.
my student autism about like things that I said or the way that I did things and how she reacted to it.
Mhm.
oh yes. Like we had a student, he reacted in a bad way. Said like something bad, and then everyone was like, we should have took certain steps, or like the student with autism, and then that's when they told us today that he does things literally, like he
Mhm.
what did like she say, that he doesn't under like his mom said that it took him like 5 times to understand what he did wrong, like you have to do it in a certain way,
Mhm.
and I think it takes time to also learn, for us to learn how to do it differently too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
and then I think that wraps up our meeting for today. I think it went well for our first time.
I think so too.
I would agree. I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording. So.
Okay.